Hey everybody, it's Chainsaw Reacts. Welcome to another Chainsaw Pitches video where I pitch you guys a superhero show that more than likely will never ever happen, and that's okay. I'm not thinking about TV budget, I'm not thinking about character rights. All I'm thinking about is what do I want to see on this show that I'm pitching you guys, and that's all it is. I'm just having fun. Don't take these videos too seriously, guys, okay? Let's get into it. As you can already see, the show that I'm pitching you guys today is going to be Spider-Man on ABC, and yes, this show is in the MCU, which means Tom Holland as Peter Parker / Spider-Man will be the main star of this show. I was kind of flip-flopping back and forth between making an MCU show as Tom Holland as Spider-Man and having his own show, or doing a show outside of the MCU with another person playing Spider-Man and having it not be connected to the MCU so I can do more stuff like bring in X-Men characters and Fantastic Four characters. But I ultimately decided, let's stick with MCU, so that's what I'm going with. Let's jump into Season 1. Who's going to be the main villain for Season 1? I feel like this character has been adapted very well outside of the comics a few times when he's appeared in the animated TV shows for Spider-Man, and even in live action when he appeared in one of the Spider-Man films, and I feel like it's time for him once again to be adapted in live action, and the character I have picked is going to be Dr. Octopus. Dr. Octopus is going to be the main villain for Season 1. His interaction, his relationship with Spider-Man is very interesting, and I feel like we should start off the show in a big way, so why not Dr. Octopus will be the main villain for Season 1. Some of the other villains we're going to be introduced to in Season 1 is going to be Chameleon, Lizard, and yes, Kingpin. The show is in the MCU, which means Vincent D'Onofrio is going to be returning once again as Kingpin on this show, and that should be a hint at another character that's going to be introduced in Season 1 as well, in terms of a good character. And I have to add Chameleon and Lizard because they're great villains as well, so why not? Some of the good characters we're going to be introduced to in Season 1 is going to be, of course, Tom Holland as Peter Parker / Spider-Man, Marissa Tomei as Aunt May, J. Jonah Jameson, Gwen Stacy, Daredevil, and yes, Luke Cage as well. Of course, we have to introduce a love interest, Gwen Stacy, of course. I was thinking Mary Jane Watson, but I want to hold her off a little bit till later on in this show. And of course, I have to introduce some heroes as well, so why not some Netflix heroes, Daredevil and Luke Cage, which he has collaborated with and worked with in the comics. The first story arc I'm going to cover for Season 1 is going to be the Daredevil crossover event. This story arc will take place within 3 episodes, and yes, Spider-Man and Daredevil are teaming up to take on Kingpin. Now, at first when they meet each other, Spider-Man and Daredevil, they're actually not going to agree with each other in terms of how they're going to take on Kingpin. Spider-Man's going to be like, I want to take him on this way, and Daredevil's going to explain to him, who just met this guy, who just met Spider-Man, Daredevil's going to explain, no, I've already fought this guy before, this is how we need to take him on. It's going to be very interesting to see the dynamic between them two, and eventually they will team up and be on the same side, obviously, and take on Kingpin. The second story arc I'm going to cover for Season 1 is going to be Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy's relationship. Now, in the comics, we all know that Peter Parker a lot of the times has to juggle between his personal life, which includes his relationship, whether it's Gwen Stacy, Mary Jane Watson, or whoever, and being Spider-Man. And throughout the season, Gwen Stacy is going to start asking questions. Why are you constantly leaving me when we're on dates? Why are you constantly out at night? What is going on? And Peter Parker is going to have a dilemma. Do I tell her I'm Spider-Man? What do I do? And at the end, at the very end, the last episode of Season 1, the season finale of Season 1, he's eventually going to tell her that he's Spider-Man, and it's kind of a cliffhanger, and basically it's going to really evolve the relationship and change it a lot going into Season 2. The third and final story arc we're going to cover for Season 1 is going to be Uncle Ben flashbacks. Hold on a second. I'm not saying that every single episode of the show we're going to get Uncle Ben flashbacks, but throughout the season there's going to be moments where we have a flashback to Uncle Ben when Peter was younger, obviously before him becoming Spider-Man, and we're going to see where Uncle Ben's giving him advice, whether it's on school or life in general or girls, whatever it may be, and it's somehow going to tie into what's happening currently in the story. I think it'd be very interesting to have Uncle Ben on the show because we all know, I think at this point, Uncle Ben's not going to be officially in the MCU. Maybe they will, I don't know, in terms of like a flashback. It'd be really cool to add that into the show and add that new layer to Peter Parker's character. Let's jump into Season 2. Who's going to be the main villain for Season 2? To some people, this is the greatest Spider-Man villain ever. To others, he's probably in the top 5 or 3. But I feel like this character needs to be brought into the show, and if he's going to be brought in, he needs to be the main villain. You guessed it, Venom will be the main villain for Season 2. Now, I know, they have confirmed Venom is not going to be in the MCU. He's going to be in his own separate Sony universe. Like I said, I'm not thinking about character rights. All I'm thinking about is, if this show is real, what do I want to see? And what do I want to see? Of course, Venom as the main villain for Season 2. Of course, come on. This character has defined Peter Parker. This character changes Spider-Man. We need to have him on the show, so why not? Some of the other villains we're going to be introduced to in Season 2 is going to be Molten Man, Rhino, and Mysterio. At one point I thought about making Mysterio the main villain for Season 2. I ultimately went with, of course, Venom. But I want to introduce these characters as I love Mysterio, love Rhino. Molten Man's a pretty cool character. But Mysterio is just a character I really gravitated to when I was younger in terms of learning about new Spider-Man characters. So I want to introduce him on the show. And maybe at some point he'll be a main villain after Season 2. Who knows? Some of the other good characters we're going to be introduced to in Season 2 is going to be Cloak and Dagger, Mockingbird, and Hawkeye. I want Hawkeye to appear more in the MCU, so I'm going to bring him onto the show. The reason why I picked Mockingbird is because she appeared on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. She was supposed to have her own spin-off show, and that didn't work out, so I wanted to bring her back into the MCU because she's been gone for a little bit, bring her into the Spider-Man show, and I wanted to bring in Cloak and Dagger because they have collaborated and worked with Spider-Man in the comics before, so why not? Let's bring them in as well. The first story arc I'm going to cover for Season 2 is going to be Peter asking Aunt May questions about his parents. What happened to them? And Aunt May is not going to be forthcoming with this information. She's actually not going to tell him anything. And it's going to get to the point where their relationship is going to be strained, where Peter and Aunt May at times are going to be fighting over this. It's going to put Peter in a dark place because he feels like she doesn't trust him enough to tell him what happened to his parents. He's going to feel like he's alone. He needs to learn this information. And unfortunately, at this time, Aunt May will not tell him. The second story arc for Season 2 I'm going to cover is going to be Spider-Man getting the symbiote suit. Around episode 12, 13, 14, around there, Spider-Man will eventually defeat Venom. Then out of nowhere, the symbiote actually attaches itself to his suit, and now he has the symbiote suit. Now I know, Spider-Man 3 covered this story arc, but let me tell you, this would be handled a lot better, it would be written a lot better, and he would have the suit for a couple of episodes until eventually it goes back, and now we get Venom again for the rest of the season. The third and final story arc I'm going to cover for Season 2 is actually not a story arc, it's more of just teasing and hinting at something pretty big that happens in the Spider-Man universe, which is iconic, and that is the Sinister Six. Now, I'm not saying the Sinister Six will be like the big villains of Season 3, possibly Season 4 or Season 5. I want to wait till Peter's a little bit older, where he's had more years under his belt, as they say, being Spider-Man, being a hero for a longer time, before he takes on 6 iconic villains at a time as a team. So yes, Sinister Six will be teased early on in Season 2. Now that we have completed the first 2 seasons of the show, I'm going to do what I did last time on the Superman CW pitch that I did. I'm going to go through some characters and some things I want to happen on the show after Season 2 is completed. These characters and things could take place in Season 3, Season 4, Season 5, Season 6. You get the point. It doesn't really matter what season, but at some point these characters and things will happen on the show, so let's get to it. Some of the villains I want to introduce after Season 2 is completed is going to be Black Tarantula, Carnage, Will-O-the-Wisp, Hammerhead, Silvermane, and of course, Green Goblin. These are just some of the villains, guys. There's other villains I want to introduce after Season 2 is completed. These are just some of them, and I will also say that Green Goblin would be a main season villain. I'm not sure what season, though. And Carnage may or may not be a main season villain. I'm not really sure. But regardless, these are some of the ones I want to introduce after Season 2 is done. Some of the heroes and good characters I want to introduce after Season 2 is going to be Silver Sable, Black Cat, Firestar, Toxin, Wasp, and of course, Mary Jane Watson. Of course, Mary Jane, the most iconic and popular Peter Parker love interest, and of course, all these other characters I just said, because they're great characters for Spider-Man to interact with and work with, and I want Firestar on the show, because when I saw Firestar in that Spider-Man animated series, I think back in the 70s, 80s, maybe even earlier, I really enjoyed her character. I want to bring Firestar into the MCU. 2 things I want to happen on the show after Season 2 is completed is going to be Peter finding out the truth about his parents and Madam Web being introduced on the show. Now, Peter finding out about his parents probably going to be around maybe Season 5 or 6, really late in the show. I don't want him to learn too early. I want it to take some time before we get to the actual truth about his parents. And Madam Web being introduced probably around Season 4 or so, and once she's introduced, everything will change for Peter Parker moving forward. It will change everything about the show. There you have it, guys. Spider-Man on ABC. Let me know in the comment section below, guys, what you thought about my pitch, and what would you guys pitch if you could pitch a Spider-Man show on ABC. Like I said at the beginning, I'm not thinking about character rights, I'm not thinking about TV budget. All I'm thinking about is what I would like to see on a Spider-Man show on ABC, and that's what I did. Don't take these too seriously. So let me know in the comment section below, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Talk to you guys later. Peace out.